Hello and welcome. My name is Ingrid Donnelly, Product Manager with IEEE Educational Activities. IEEE is the world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Our virtual event today is Building Engineering Leaders in the 21st Century. This live webinar will give you an overview of the IEEE Rutgers Online Mini MBA for Engineers program. If you would like to tweet about the event today, please use the hashtag IEEELearn. Before we begin, should you need any technical assistance during the presentation, either click the yellow question mark at the bottom of your screen or type your question in the Q&A section. If you have questions about the topic during the presentation, please use the same Q&A section. We will get to as many questions as time allows. However, please know additional questions will be answered via email. Please know an IEEE Certificate of Participation is available to all attendees. Click the certificate icon at the bottom of your screen to access. The on-demand link will be available 2 hours after the event. Please look out for that email. Today's presenters are Jenny Fine, Associate Director at Rutgers Business School Executive Education, Dr. Ben Sopranzetti, Executive Education Professor and Vice Chair in the Finance and Economics Department, and Braun Keese, Instructor of Professional Practice in Executive Education Management and Global Business. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Jenny Fine.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm delighted to be here. Here at Rutgers Business School Executive Education, we've been working with the IEEE for quite a long time. I spend most of my time in executive education grappling with the question of how do organizations and individuals develop their collective and singular skill sets to really make sure that they're driving toward professional growth and organizational success. So today we're going to talk about one particular challenge that I imagine many of you are familiar with, which we'll tackle in 2 parts. The first is, how do you identify emerging leaders in your organization? So how do you know sort of who should be and who is in the talent pipeline? And then part 2 is, once you've identified these people and you know who they are, what do you do with them and for them to help give them the skills they need for success and growth? Because as we'll get into in a few moments, of course, knowing who has the potential to move forward and to lead doesn't mean that they're quite ready yet. So how do you sort of cultivate that skill set with the talent that you've identified? In terms of identifying them, many organizations, and perhaps you find this at your own, promotes their high achievers. There's the promotion from within culture in many organizations. I see myself that that's very successful in most cases. It's motivating. You bring along institutional knowledge with you, relationships. So many organizations choose to create leaders from their current high achievers. Whether that's your method or not, you still are faced with this question of how do you provide your next generation of leaders with the skill sets that they'll need. Particularly in organizations with a technical focus, you might have a lot of technical professionals who are your high achievers, but it's possible that those achievements are centered around technical skills and accomplishments, but that might not always help them transition or be sufficient to translate to success in leadership roles. So these are some of the things that we'll talk about today, and we'll focus for a moment in particular on what are the necessary skills that technical professionals require when they're transitioning into leadership roles. Where might the gaps be, and what are those skills that they need, and if we assume that they might not have all those skills, what will we do about that? One thing that I find is I work with professionals in a wide variety of organizations, large and small, various industries, various functional areas, but thinking most tightly and closely now about technical professionals is that they've often not been exposed to formal training or education in communication and business skills. Now, those skills are important for all professionals, but until you're perhaps being considered or transitioning into a leadership role, it might not be obvious for a technical professional that that's a gap, or perhaps how extensive the gap might be. So if organizations wish to promote from within, reward hard work with new opportunities, which motivates certainly your entire workforce, and really to establish succession plans, drawing on internal resources, organizations have to offer some sort of education and training to their next generation of leaders, potentially focusing largely on business and communication skills that they might not ever have received or perhaps not needed to implement or to utilize in their day-to-day technical roles to the degree that their new leadership roles will require it. What I'd like you to do now for a moment, and we'll pause and have a moment of silence so you can work on this, is take a look at this leadership self-assessment that you'll see in front of you. There are 14 numbered items on this list, and please take a moment and just determine with a little self-analysis if you would consider each of these an area of strength for yourself or an area that needs development. And you'll notice that many of these are what we might consider soft skills related to communications, relationships, negotiation, team building, and collaboration. So these are all areas in which leaders need to understand where their strengths and weaknesses are. This might be a good resource for you to help develop your teams in the future. But for now, let's take a moment and just pause and take a look at this list and just in your mind or on a piece of paper indicate S or D for strengths or needs development so that you can start to think about what a leader might need. So we'll pause now for a moment. All right. If you've not gotten through that full list, I would encourage you to take advantage of that self-assessment at another time. The slide, which will be available to you later, does have the source at the bottom, so you can locate that resource when you're ready to take another look at it. Now, many of those skills that we just looked at are what we might think of as soft skills. As we can see, those soft skills are on a larger list of skills that emerging leaders need to develop, along with some other skills that we might call more hard skills. And these are areas like finance, economics, marketing, leadership, strategy, innovation, business law, which is actually one of my personal favorites. And I think of business law almost in terms of mitigating risk, understanding where the pitfalls might be and how to avoid them. Human resources, multicultural awareness. This is a huge area of need today for leaders working with global teams. And mergers and acquisitions is something else that leaders need to understand. Now, depending on their role and their backgrounds and the makeup of their teams, some leaders will need to get more into some of these areas than others. Some will resonate more with others. But these are all areas that leaders really need to be familiar and conversant in order to effectively lead their teams, collaborate, work with cross-functional groups, and really take their teams, their organizations, and even their individual selves into the future. We've spent a few moments now discussing what some challenges are, how we identify new talents, what skills we might need to give them to ensure that they're successful, particularly in transitioning from individual contributors on the technical side to leadership roles. What I'd like to do now is talk about some solutions. Of course, when we have challenges, there are always solutions. So let's talk about a few of the solutions. The first solution that I'd like to discuss is self-study. Now, there are many resources available for professionals who wish to develop or cultivate a particular skill or area of knowledge or skill set. There are several pros to this self-study approach. The first is that emerging leaders might know best what they need, and they might be able to say, I'm going to go find the information that will help me. I'm going to do it on my own time. I'll find resources of a nature and a variety that appeal to me, and it will be easily available. And don't worry, organization, about developing me. I'm going to do it on my own. I know what I need. So those are some options, and those self-study resources might include things such as YouTube videos, books, blogs, and other variety of print and electronic resources. There really is no shortage of development resources available to intrepid professionals who go looking for them. There are some downsides to this approach, however. Of course, when there are upsides, there are downsides, and there's always a weighing to be done. One downside of self-study might be a lack of formal accountability. If the learner and the emerging leader says, I'm going to find the resources, I'm going to consume them, I'm going to absorb the material, and I'm going to implement it, there's a lot of accountability internally there, but perhaps not back up the chain of command, for lack of a better term. There might also be inconsistent skill growth across groups of leaders if we take this approach of self-study. Some might prefer reading blogs, some might prefer watching videos, some might prefer turning the pages in an old-fashioned book. That would probably be my way of doing things. So the method and the subject matter that they're exposed to might be different, which perhaps will promote individual growth, but still doesn't quite help you achieve that target of formalized succession planning, organizational skill development. And then, of course, the flip side of having so much material and so many resources available might be that it becomes out of date very rapidly. So you might have emerging leaders who are looking at last year's theories and practices and materials, and perhaps something new and improved would be more appropriate. And of course, there might be information that's simply not quite reliable or credible. So certainly self-study is one valuable option for developing emerging leaders. But we do, of course, have to weigh those pros and those cons and not just assume that that is the best and brightest way to get where you want to go from a more formal, structured perspective. If you're looking for that more formal, structured perspective with some accountability, consistency for different learners, you might want to engage in a formal, structured, academic learning program. Of course, you want any learning program to be user-friendly. If it's an online system, it should be easy to use. If it's something in print, whatever that might look like, or a classroom experience, it needs to be geographically and calendar-wise accessible and realistic. But one good option to the self-study might be a more formal, structured learning experience offered by professional educators or trainers of some kind. So here's where I'd like to segue into one program that is co-run by the IEEE and Rutgers Business School Executive Education. This is what we call the Rutgers Online Mini MBA for Engineers. Now, I often get the question, what is a mini MBA? So we will jump into that right now. A mini MBA is a short-term learning experience that is very focused. It is a certificate program. At Rutgers, it happens to lead to some academic credit as well. Some learners are looking for that, and for some, it's just a nice bonus. But it is fundamentally a focused learning experience for professionals who have a new set of skills or knowledge that they are learning to acquire in a structured, formal way. So the Rutgers Online Mini MBA for Engineers hits on all those points. This is a fully online, self-paced program that we have designed specifically for engineers and technology professionals. Everyone taking this course is coming from that sort of engineering and technical background. The faculty who teach in this course are Rutgers Business School faculty, as well as industry experts who we work with, who have robust technical and engineering backgrounds. In a few moments, you'll actually hear from a few of our faculty about what they do and how they came to this program with their technical background and their business skills. This course also offers what we call virtual office hours. These are call-in sessions where our learners can speak directly with the faculty. They can get additional insight on the topic at hand, as well as ask their questions and get answers directly from the experts. We do also have online discussion boards that provide an opportunity for interaction not only with the faculty, but also with fellow learners. And there's a tremendous value to having learners collaborating and interacting as they're taking their educational process together as well. The mini MBA consists of 10 topics. I'll flash those on the screen in a moment. Each topic consists of readings, on-demand videos, and assessments. So it is a robust, multi-focused learning tool. To round out the learning experience at the very end of the course, there is a final exam and a capstone project that really helps synthesize the learning and help you pull everything together that you have learned in a real-world way. The final exam is a multiple choice, fairly standard format exam, making sure that you've fully integrated the highlights of each topic. And the capstone project is actually a lot of fun and very exciting. It is a real-world business challenge, and you provide solutions. The learner provides solutions and justifies them based on their learnings from the whole course. The capstones can be customized for individual corporate clients, or we have a more standard assignment that we use. One thing that I always enjoy is seeing the capstones submitted by learners. We might have 30 people taking a course as a cohort. They get the same assignments, and all of them submit something different for their capstones. And you can really see the learning from every angle. And it's a valuable experience for me, which I appreciate, as well as for the learners, to really see the different angles at which you can approach a real-world business problem to come up with various solutions. Corporate clients receive reports of academic progress along the way. So if you are an organization that is putting 15 people through this course, you would be well informed about their progress and their experience through the weeks of the course, typically 12 weeks. There's some flexibility there. And then we also gather a lot of feedback from learners and share it with corporate clients about the learner experience, their perspective, and their perceived value as well. The program is typically intended for groups of 10 or more employees at an organization, which provides, again, that consistent exposure to the subject matter, to the format, shared accountability, collaborative thinking, and a sort of camaraderie as teams of leaders are sharing this experience and developing together. As promised, now you can take a look at the topics that we include in this mini MBA. We talk first about business strategy. analyzing financial statements, which is something that often our learners have had no exposure to, and it's really important for emerging leaders to understand the finances. We talk about economics. We deal with intellectual property strategy, new product development, negotiations, and really in life and in business, everything is a negotiation of some kind. We talk about selling ideas and influencing people. How do you gain consensus? We deal with business ventures and innovation, leadership, and then we wrap things up with what we call transformational agility. It's really a riff, I would say, on organizational change management, but we really like to focus on the piece of that that's the agility factor, that organizations and leaders and individuals and teams need to be able to adapt to change relatively quickly, pivot this way, pivot that way, with the shared goal of making things work, regardless of the changing context around them. The real focus of this course is to develop business management skills for teams. And as you saw from the topics that we just explored, many of these are fairly foundational business areas and business topics. We present them all through the lens of technology. The case studies, the examples, the assignments, the assessments are all focused with that technology background and the assumption that that's the field that the learners are working in. It both creates a comfort level and helps learners really understand how this applies to their work and their organizations. So really, this is designed to bridge the gap between business and engineering for professionals transitioning into management roles. There are many mini MBAs on many topics offered by many educational providers. This program is the only mini MBA that is specifically designed for engineers and really by engineers as well. Once a learner has successfully completed the mini MBA, they will be able to understand organizational decisions, both keeping in mind the technical and the operational considerations. They will understand how different functional groups interact to achieve overall organizational goals, and they can apply their newly developed business skills to better match up their technical capabilities with business strategy. So this really helps technical professionals break out of their silo and see the horizon around them within their own organization, not only from that technical perspective, but from the overall organizational perspective as well. As you can see, this is a very specialized course curriculum developed thoughtfully with the business school faculty here at Rutgers, as well as our partners in the industry world. It is a very convenient format. Nobody will take a course that's not accessible and realistic for them, and we know that. So it is a 15-week or less learning experience. It is self-paced. It is relevant topics. It is user-friendly. And it's also very flexible, again, because of the self-paced, on-demand nature of the materials that are available. And here's where individual learners can differentiate their learning experience even while having the consistency of a structured program. Because the course is on demand, a learner who really struggles in one area can watch the videos twice, can try to submit 2 versions of an assignment to challenge themselves and stretch their mental muscles. Somebody might say, you know, I've had some leadership training, so I'm going to focus on the leadership, but my main focus will be the intellectual property strategy. That's where I'm moving into, and that's where I have not had a lot of exposure. So while we know that every learner will benefit from the entire program, the structure of the online, self-paced, on-demand class allows people to focus more, perhaps, on the areas that resonate most with them. I am pleased that today with us on our webinar, we have two of our faculty, as introduced earlier, who helped both develop the program and continue to serve as faculty in the program. The first who we'll hear from is Professor Ben Sopranzetti. Professor Sopranzetti actually does two topics in the course. The first is financial statement analysis. The second is negotiations. And Dr. Sopranzetti, if you could talk with us about those for a few moments.
Sure, I'd be delighted. Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Sopranzetti. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Department of Finance and Economics here at Rutgers Business School, and I'm a degreed electrical engineer, and I'm also a member of the IEEE. I've been since I was in college back in the early 80s. I was involved in the ground floor of this in designing this curriculum, thinking about what were the skills that I wish I had had when I had transitioned into management before I moved full-blown into finance. And two of those skills were financial statement analysis and negotiations. I wasn't prepared at all for managing a budget or making financial proposals or business plans in support of an idea or a project that I wanted to propose to management. So the financial statement analysis class helps us to understand four really important things about a firm: profitability, efficiency, leverage, and liquidity. So profitability, am I generating enough profit from every given dollar of revenue that I earn? And I'm going to help you understand that there's four drivers, and there's only four drivers of that. If you're not for profit, there's three drivers. So it's important for us as engineers to understand profitability and particularly how is it that what we do contributes to the overall profitability of the firm. Efficiency, are we lean and mean, or are we bogged down with assets that aren't generating revenue? Because those assets need to be financed. Leverage, the judicious use of debt is good. The injudicious use of debt leads to erosion of your competitive position and ultimately bankruptcy. And lastly, liquidity. I mean, does the firm have access to cash irrespective of what happens in that product market? So we're going to be looking principally at the top three financial statements, the balance sheet, the statement of cash flows, and the income statement. And the goal is to help you to be able to make some basic inferences at the end of that 3-hour session. The second course is negotiation. Now, there's two kinds of negotiation. There's integrative negotiation, which is how do you and I together share, build trust in order to build a bigger pie. And distributive negotiation, which is it's a fixed pie, and how do I claim as much of that for myself as I possibly can. This module is focused on distributive negotiation, which is really kind of the zero-sum game. You're negotiating a car, you're going to negotiate compensation with your boss, you're going to be negotiating a lease or with a vendor. These are typically distributive. So I'll help you understand the process of negotiation, where leverage comes from in a negotiation, and with any hope to help you get the best possible deal for yourself and for the firm which you are representing. So those are my two modules. In fact, I just had office hours for the negotiation modules the other night. It was terrific. I mean, it was an active, really curious group. They really dug the sessions. They found them to be interesting. They liked that I have an engineering background and that I can use these types of examples to make it real and it sticks to their ribs. So I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague and my business partner as well, Braun Keese, who's going to be talking about the course that he teaches, which is Business Ventures and Innovation. Braun?
Thank you, Dr. Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Professor Keese. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the module I teach in this course. And really the goal of this module is called Business Ventures and Innovation. And the goal of this module is to really get you thinking about how do I take an idea I might have, or how does my organization take an idea we have and commercialize it, right? Go from idea to revenues. And when we dive into this topic, we're going to learn some differences between what I refer to as sort of traditional management techniques, which are what are typically taught in business school, and what I call entrepreneurial management techniques. Now, I've been fortunate enough to spend my entire 20-plus year career as an entrepreneur, and I've done a lot of technology commercialization, a lot of intellectual property commercialization, and there's some real differences here in these management techniques, and I think right now we're starting to see a paradigm shift in business schools as they start to recognize that a lot of the skills that they teach that make individuals very good managers make them very, very bad innovators. and very bad at bringing new ideas to market. So we're going to explore that disparity and then start to examine some tools we can use to correct for that. So we're going to explore some methodologies like the innovator's method and lean startup principles, and see how these rubrics we might be able to apply to our innovations to more successfully bring them to market. We're going to explore concepts, a lot of different concepts in innovation, such as disruptive innovation, open innovation, lean and agile methodologies. And at the end of the session, I really want to leave you guys with a framework that you can use to, most importantly, evaluate whether or not an innovation is a good fit for your organization, whether or not it will create value for the organization, and also, if it will, how do we correctly engage in that process and develop that innovation and bring it to market. And I actually just had online office hours on this session too, and it was the same thing as Ben described. It was a really lively group. They were very intellectually curious and were really excited about the ideas they had learned and sort of putting them to use. And I think overall the goal in these programs is to teach you guys to make better business decisions. And that's ultimately, I know what I tend to focus on a lot, and I'm sure what Dr. Ben focuses on is, at the end of the day, you need skills that when you're in the office the next day will allow you to make a better business decision. And that's the focus here is not intellectual, not academic, real world tools and skills that you can put to use in the office the next day. Jenny, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny.
I think Ingrid will take it over for questions and answers.
Yes, we will. So I wanted to go into our question and answers section at this time. Just a reminder, if anyone is on the line that would like to have questions answered, please be sure to populate them in the Q&A section. So the first question I'd like to pose to our panelists are, what kind of support or resources would an organization want to provide a new leader seeking either self-study or a formal education program to boost their chances of success?
This is Jenny. I'll take that one as a starting point. I would say the number one thing that an organization needs to provide is acknowledgement that learning new things to help grow into the new role is really important. It's not a nice to have, it's not an extra, it's not a, well, if you can find time, fit it in. It's really mission critical for success. You've identified a leader, you've promoted that individual into a leadership role, and now it needs to be acknowledged that they're new at this type of position, and they need to do some learning. So ensuring that you value the effort and initiative to do the learning, making sure that time is built in. And that doesn't mean that this person is going to block out hours of their day every day and not be available to do the work at hand, but understanding that this is a commitment, relatively short term, but that the time needs to be available, valuing what they're learning, asking them to share what they're learning with others. That's another good way to get really a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of the learning. Let there be a trickle-down effect. And it also promotes the message within the organization that, yes, the learning is important. This individual has risen through the ranks, but there is a gap to be filled, and we are prioritizing as an organization filling it. So I would say really acknowledging and validating the value of the learning, the time commitment that is required, and then celebrating the achievements at the end. Of course, we're never done learning, but if you're taking a particular course or embarked on a particular learning program, there should be some celebration at the end and acknowledgement of there was a goal, the course was a means to achieve that goal, and now we're done. So maybe now we'll set a new goal, but celebrating the accomplishments, I think, is also important.
Great, thank you. I have the next question specific for Dr. Sofranzetti. This one says, with your electrical engineering background, what made you decide to take your career in a finance economics direction?
Well, that's actually a really good question. The skills are highly sympathetic. The math is nearly identical that I learned probably in the 5 semesters of calculus that I took. The math is really similar. It's partial differential equations. It was all the heat transfer stuff that we did back in school. But really, what sent me in that direction was I had a patent that needed to be commercialized. We were selling the company, and I needed to figure out what the company was worth. We needed a valuation on it, and I happened to be taking a degree in engineering management at the time. It was at Drexel in Philadelphia. And I took a valuation course, and I don't know, something just resonated in me. I really dug it, destroyed the MBAs. I think I was like a standard deviation and a half higher than the next highest grade. And the professor said, you know what, Ben, you really should think about getting a PhD in finance. And I never looked back. So when I was a PhD student, I was on retainer by Lehman Brothers up in Chicago as a valuation guy. And I was doing really arcane stuff that required a lot of financial modeling. But as an engineer, I had the skills. So it felt natural for me, and I've never looked back. You know, I really I enjoy finance. It's basically applied mathematics, applied statistics, and computer science. So we as engineers have a very strong comparative advantage when we move into this area. So I hope I answered your question.
So thank you. So I have another question, and I'm going to pose this to Bron. Do you have any advice on how a leader can foster a smooth transition following a merger?
Oh wow, that's a big question. You know, and really the question there pertains to culture. So the issue at hand is, how do I merge these two disparate potentially cultures into one cohesive organization? And you know, I think you need to first take the time to stop and sort of understand what these cultures are. I mean, hopefully the CEO or whoever did the deal examine this first, because there's often a mismatch here, and it leads to a lot of the value not being recognized in M&A transactions when it should be. So, all the synergies that are forecasted when the bankers are running the M&A deal, as far as cost savings and you know, removal of duplicative services and things like that, oftentimes don't end up happening because they simply can't get the cultures to merge and for the organization, for the two companies to act as one. And so it's really a culture issue. It's, I think, one of the hardest things, honestly, a business manager can do. And you know, it takes, I think, just a lot of time to really understand, you know, to really understand each of the organizations and to figure out, you know, and there's a question too, you know, is this a merger or is this an acquisition? Right? If it's an acquisition, then it's a little bit more straightforward, because you're now, you know, we're going to impose our culture onto you because we're the acquirer. If it's a merger, then that's a little bit more delicate of a situation, and I mean, honestly, it could be the subject of an entire course in and of itself. But I hope I answered that as much as I could with the time allotted.
Thank you, Bron. I have another question that has come in. If you are new to the company, what are some key ways to engage to show your leadership capabilities without overstepping? I'll leave that to Ben or
Was that
Bron.
directed at me?
Ben, please feel free.
Yeah, this is Bron. I'm happy to take that one. I think the key, really one of the ways you can make yourself, I think, stand out without overstepping your bounds is to do the stuff no one else wants to do. Right? I mean, do the hard stuff, do the stuff, or maybe it's just boring and mundane, but whatever it is, if you step up to the plate and are willing to tackle something, or to, you know, I have always appreciated somebody who's willing to, you know, as the boss, lighten my load, right? So if I step forward, and if you step forward and just ask your boss, hey, what can I help you with? What, you know, what do you need? Is there something right now that I can help you with? And I think just that simple question will allow you to sort of rise to the challenge, to be noticed, and to have an opportunity to demonstrate that you're eager, you're there to make a difference, and sort of put you on the map.
And if I can chime in with Braun, folks are going to make mistakes when they start, right? So people expect you to hit the ground running, but if you're a rookie, they're going to expect mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. If you do, own up to them, but then don't make them again. That's really important, is that folks need to see that there's learning and that you can take the information, you can apply it, and that you don't make the same mistakes again and again. And ultimately what happens is they start to trust you. And then once they trust you, the responsibility that comes your way will increase. And as will your visibility and your value to the organization. I mean, I see a lot of rookies stumble.
Thank you, Ben and Braun. So I have another question, and this one states, I work for the utility industry as an electrical engineer and have about 4 years of experience. If I decided to pursue an MBA, looking to make a transition into finance, economics, or a business area, what opportunities would I have having no experience in the business or financial market?
I'll take that one. This is Ben Sopranzetti. So as a career, we get a lot of career switchers that go the MBA route. If you're going to do that, you're going to want to go the full-time route, and you're going to want to get an internship to help better position you. I mean, as an EE, your functional skills with respect to finance are going to be really pretty strong. You're going to find that most of the math that we use in traditional finance is at the algebra level. I mean, it's not very difficult for us. So I think that you'll find that your skill set, in terms of your technical skill set, will translate pretty well. The key is going to be to really get some experience. And an internship is going to do that. I find it difficult for part-timers to transition simply because nobody wants to take a risk on, say, you'll be 26 or 27, say a 27-year-old career switcher in finance who's going to be asking for 100, 120,000 when they can get a rookie who's going to come in at 65. Right? So you need to be able to show that 4 or 5 years of engineering experience has transferable skills that add value above and beyond your functional proficiency. Braun's going to...
Yeah, if I could chime in here too, I think number one, it's actually a very powerful combination. So, a technical background combined with a business skill set with an MBA is really a powerful thing in an organization, and I think is certainly noticed. And you see a lot of that, I think, in leadership roles. I think Dr. Ben is absolutely right. You'd pursue a full-time MBA, but I think the mini MBA is a great primer to that. Right? It's a great way to explore if this is for you or not. And so, you could do the mini MBA, get a sense of the topics you would be diving in much more depth in a full-time MBA, and see if there's a fit.
I think we also have credits. Jenny, can you opine on that?
Yes. With our mini MBA, we do offer a 3-credit waiver. That means that if you take the mini MBA, you can carry in 3 elective graduate credits. I'm careful how I say this because it's specific, into a Rutgers Business School graduate program. So if you take the mini MBA and then you enroll in our MBA, executive MBA, we do have a few specialty master's programs, MS programs. The mini MBA will allow you to opt out of one 3-credit elective course if you enroll in a graduate degree program here at Rutgers Business School. So I would say that about half the people who take the mini MBA have their eye on a graduate program, and this is a good way to dip your toe in the water. The other half really just want to learn something new, fill a gap, boost their career. So people come for a variety of reasons, but it is a little bit of a double dip if you're considering graduate school and not quite ready.
Great, thank you. I have another question, and this one is, how can an organization use educational programs to increase female leadership opportunities?
This is Jenny. I'll chime in on that. One area that I mentioned but did not get into too much detail about was the camaraderie and collaboration that comes along with sharing an experience with your peers and with your colleagues, particularly if you are transitioning into a role of increased or different responsibility at the same time. So I think that the networking opportunities and the internal networks and relationships that you build when you make a move at the same time are valuable. And if an organization is providing the same educational resources to a diverse group of new leaders, that starts to help build these networks, and there's a trickle-down effect from there. Does that address the question? I hope so.
I hope so. Thank you, Jenny. We do have a few more questions, so I'm just going to throw out just a couple of more as time does allow for. Let's see. As an engineering leader, how can I keep my technical knowledge fresh?
That's a great question. Dr. Sopranzetti, would you like to take the first stab at that?
Yeah, I'm very happy. That's why we do continuing professional education. It's critical, whether you're a PE or, like in finance, we have chartered financial analysts, and engineering, we have professional engineers. For me, I'm continuously learning. That's one of the cool things about a professor, is that I get to learn something every day. But I think keeping oneself current and relevant is very important, especially as we mature in our careers. Otherwise, our skill set stagnates, and we become quite expensive for our functional skill set. So I think it's very important that we grow and continue to be able to add value to an organization. I hope I answered that question for you.
Yes, thank you. And one more, how can leadership skills mentioned here be applied to academic settings, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a vice chair, so I do a lot of negotiation. I look at a lot of financial statements, and I manage a lot of very interesting people. You know, academia attracts all kinds, and for me, my greatest challenges are human resource related challenges and budgetary challenges. Now, you know, the mini MBA program provides a great deal of breadth. It's a program that we built to create awareness of functional areas. There's not a lot of depth. I mean, you've got me for 3 hours in negotiation, whereas if you took me at Rutgers, you'd have me for 14 weeks. It's a very different thing, you know. So it creates awareness of certainly where my weaknesses were. I mean, I'm not very strong in marketing, but I actually learned an awful lot when I sat in on that module. One of the original mini MBA modules way back in the day. So I find it to be directly applicable to what it is that I'm doing. And it certainly highlighted to me the areas of weakness for me, and also areas of interest. I just became a lot more interested in human resources management, because for me, it really is my greatest challenge, how to get these very diverse, very strongly opinionated people all moving in one direction and sharing a common goal and trying to make my department work better and be better.
I'll chime in on this as well, which is that I think there's a trend in academia today, perhaps unique to business schools or more prevalent in business schools, which is that our professors, while they are certainly academically trained and that's what they're here to do have strong ties to corporations. And it has to do with shifting priorities, where certainly education is the number one priority of a university and particularly of a business school. But the reality is that business schools don't function in a vacuum. They offer career services and they offer executive education, and the alumni go out into the world, and we want them to maintain their ties to the university. So I have yet to meet a professor at Rutgers Business School who does not have a foot in the world of industry as well. And we do see that these skills are needed to, to help straddle that divide as well. And the divide really is shrinking, I think, where industry recognizes the resources that a university can provide. And there are these sort of partnerships, whether formal or informal. And the idea of the professor in the ivory tower, I think, is disappearing.
Thank you. I think we have time for just one more. This one states, how do you know when is the right time to pursue expansion into a new area the company has never had experience in before?
Hi, this is Braun. I'm happy to chime in on that. So how do you know when the time is right? I mean, to me, making a good business decision starts with understanding the numbers. So first we need to understand the opportunity, the size of the opportunity, right? And then we also need to understand the risk. And so, and then once we understand those two components, right? So once we understand how good a potential opportunity this is in terms of how much financial benefit there might be for the firm, and two, what the risk associated with undergoing that is, and that you need to think about risk from a few different perspectives, but there's a lot of facets to risk. But when you can properly understand the benefits and the risk, you're now in a position to understand the financial side of that decision. Now, there's also, in any good business decision, there's a strategic component and also a moral and ethical component. So next, you then need to take what you've learned from the sort of financial analysis of benefits and risk and see how that aligns or does not align with the strategy of the organization, and where ultimately the organization wants to be in the long run. If you find alignment there, and by pursuing this, you're going to end up in a place you want to be, and the risk is acceptable relative to the benefit, then it's the right time to pursue it. Assuming you have access to the resources to pursue it, which is a whole other issue. But assuming the resources are available, then I think the time is right. I'm always reminded of sort of the Wayne Gretzky quote of you want to skate to where the company wants to be headed to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. So that's the strategy component of the business decision. But if we understand the financial aspect, the strategic aspect, and then consider any moral or ethical issues, the culmination of that should hopefully be a good business decision, and determine if the timing is right or not.
Thanks for that response, Ron. I wanted to move on and say, we invite all of you to learn more about the IEEE Rutgers Online Mini MBA for engineers, as well as share this information with your managers and human resources. Please see the link noted within the presentation as well as the resource list within the platform. I wanted to take this time to thank all of you for joining us today, and a huge thank you to our presenters. At this time, we're going to close the call, but I want to wish all of you a wonderful day.